let me go ahead and get started. This session is content with your content. And so we'll jump right in. So I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have realized just how critical having good content is to the growth of your business. Today, we want you to hear from 3 industry professionals who have pretty much mastered the concept of creating great content. They've consistently used great content to become a trusted, reliable resource in their respective spaces and have grown their business in the process. So our panelists, who honestly need no introduction, is Mitch Bach, who's the founder of TripSchool. You may have heard of him, probably not, but just in case, we have him here for you. Steve Dolinsky, who is the owner of Pizza City USA in Chicago, food tour operator, pizza tour operator in Chicago, the best in the business. And we have Shane Whaley, who is the founder, host, and producer of the TourPrenuer podcast and Daily Brief. Fellas, welcome. Let's jump right in. For most of us, the thought of developing and finding and managing content consistently, while we're running our business is pretty overwhelming. I think the question that most people ask is, is it all worth it? What would you all say to that?
I think it's worth it. I started this as kind of a lark. I am a food reporter in Chicago for the local ABC affiliate, and I've been doing that for 17 years. So I report on the food scene, and I kind of jumped into pizza by accident. I started as kind of a dare online, writing about the best pizza places, and it led to a book called Pizza City USA, which led to a tour business called Pizza City USA Tours. And so for the last 3 seasons, and a season in Chicago is essentially May through October, we take people around on bus tours, walking tours, private tours, special events to see at least 4 different styles of pizza in about 3 hours. And COVID aside, going into March, we had a great run. We were really ramping up. We were adding docents, our tour guides. We have a perfect, excellent rating on TripAdvisor. We've never had anything below a 5-star rating. So we're ranked number 2 now out of 106 food and drink tours in Chicago. So we really take the approach of really good content, not just saying, hey, we're gonna go eat pizza, but you're gonna learn about Chicago history. You're gonna learn about pizza history. You're gonna learn about different styles of pizza, really taking a journalist's approach. And my inspiration was Culinary Backstreets, which started by a Chicagoan who moved to Istanbul and created a program there. And he's now in like 7 or 8 cities, I think, in Europe. But really, what would a journalist do on a food tour as opposed to just taking it to the touristy places? That's what we wanted to do. And I get a charge out of that, seeing people's eyes light up when they hear that Chicago pizza is more than just deep dish.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that I like about all 3 of you is, you become the expert in what you do. And it's not necessarily, you talk about what you do, but you become the expert in that space. You become the expert on pizza and cheese and ingredients and different things like that. And you build trust in that way. And I think that is something is phenomenal. Mitch, how's TripSchool done the amazing things that they've done with content?
I think of it in terms of 2 things. One is visibility. It's showing up and being present in front of your customer, and content creation is a great way to do that because it's something beyond ads and emails that share discounts. What else are you doing to stay present in front of your customers when they're leading up to a tour or after a tour? And that visibility comes through whether it's Instagram marketing or Facebook posts or blog posts. I think the most important thing in the hundreds and hundreds of discussions that I have with tour operators and tour guides is there's no single path to creating content. I get questions, should I make a blog? Should I do Instagram? This is the season, this is the time for experimentation, but also owning the path that you decide to go down for a little bit. Nobody likes to visit a website and see 2 sad old blog posts about the best clubs to go to in the 1970s in New York City. You've got to own it. You've got to stay relevant and present to those customers. But here's the great thing. There's a lot of talk right now about direct marketing because we're all trying to rid ourselves as tour business owners of the sort of monopoly of OTAs that are grabbing percentages that increasingly we don't have, which means everybody's asking the question, what do I do to remain relevant and to get people visiting my website? And one of the, I think, best things you can do is I think of a website as a house, and you want a house to have as many doors as possible into it. And so if you can create relevant doors, in other words, relevant entry points into your world, then you're going to bring in that potential customer and be able to do something with them. And so you have to decide, what kind of content am I going to create that is going to bring people in and that is helpful and relevant to them. And I'm sure we're going to talk about the content part of this, but that is so crucial. You can't just throw little journal entries up there about your life. It should be pointed. You should be doing research to find what kind of content you want to create, and there should be a reason for it. So I'm guessing we'll talk about that later.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's super critical, is, being relevant to what it is that they want to hear. They don't necessarily want to hear about, again, exactly what you do all the time. They have certain things that they're only going to buy a training, maybe once or a couple times a year, but they need to know about the business of tour directing or tour guiding all throughout the year. Same with pizza tours, again, even with the TourPreneur podcast. I mean, the content that Shane has in his newsletter, in his Facebook group, which is so amazing, is not, of course, just about how great TourPreneur is, but about the things that those people in that group want to hear about, right? Those are the things that's so relevant to them. So, Shane, can you tell us more about, how you've done that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing we should remember here is we're all very fortunate working in our industry. We're not selling insurance, which is terribly boring. Everything that we do, the reason we launch our tours, the reason we lead our activities, is we're passionate about what we are sharing with other people. So that should make content creation and content marketing very, very exciting and not a chore, because we're sharing things that we love. Now with TourPreneur, when I created it, what I will share with you, because I think this is so relevant when it comes to content creation, I had this idea. I wanted to have a podcast where I just interview tour operators. I didn't think there was anything out there like that, where we learned the story, what were the challenges, how do you get started, how do you get funded, what was a low point, how do you overcome it, what tools do you use, all of that. And I wanted to put that out on a podcast episode. And many of my peers said to me, oh, you're crazy. No one wants to listen to that. People want ghost podcasts and true crime podcasts. They don't want to listen to the tour operators talking about how they build their business. And I've launched it. That was almost 2 years ago. And we're almost at the point of 100,000 downloads. There's 100,000 times that someone's listened to an episode of TourPreneur with no advertising. I've experimented a little bit with Facebook ads. It was a complete failure. And that goes back to what Mitch was just saying about experimentation. We're scientists, really, when we create content, because we create something, we share something, and we pay attention and study the results. Did that resonate? Did it get engagement? No, it didn't. Okay, why didn't it get engagement? And, there is a great story about Bob Dylan. I think it was the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, when he came out on stage and played an electric guitar. And half the audience was electrified and the other half were electrocuted because they were absolutely disgusted he was playing electric. Now, if Bob Dylan hadn't taken that risk, who knows where his career may have gone. And that's the fun part about what we do, is not to get too, to embrace that uncertainty with content. We can try different things. And right now with COVID and in this pandemic, I think it's fair to say none of us are flush with cash for marketing and advertising, but we have these free tools that we can use and experiment with in order to tell the story of our tour business and our activity businesses or our experiences.
Yeah, I think also, and I do a podcast called Pizza City every other Friday, literally by myself. So I'm the host and the producer, and just do it on GarageBand on my Mac. But I figured out a while ago that if I could hone in on something and become an expert at it and be the only one doing it, that people would notice. And certainly we've had some national magazines have said, oh, there is a pizza podcast. And I've gotten really good guests from New York and from the West Coast. But I knew that we'd get some sponsor interest. And lo and behold, we've got a cheese sponsor now, because we are really targeting people who are interested in making pizza and making it professionally, or doing a career switch, which is, again, part of the book that I'm doing, part of the tours that we're doing. Now I'm doing virtual events. This is a great thing for people out there who want to kind of increase their awareness and get out there as an expert. I put together like a 2-page PDF that says I will do virtual pizza parties, virtual pizza experiences. I just had a guy in Canada reach out to me yesterday. He wants me to do an event for people in Toronto. So it's not about sending dough out and yeast out. It's about my connections in the pizza world and contacting the pizza maker in Toronto or Austin or San Francisco, and then shipping those pizzas to those local people, and then doing an event called Detroit style pizza or artisan style or Neapolitan or Sicilian style pizza, or lo and behold, Chicago deep dish, deep pan pizza. So I can do these events virtually now, and I could never really think about this before COVID. So, I mean, I've got 6 events coming up in the next month and a half for corporations, for law firms, big consulting companies that want to do something with an expert, and it's about pizza, and everybody loves pizza.
I
So
think
Go ahead, Mitch.
I was just going to say, just to follow up on that, I mean, that's a perfect example of the way in which we should all feel free to be experimenting right now. I know Shane and I have an aversion for experts or gurus, people that tell you their 5-point plan for how things are supposed to be and work in the world. And that's just not true. This is such a diverse industry. Every single one of your markets is so unique. And within those markets, you don't know what kind of niche you're going to carve out until you start carving it out. And that comes through practice and through iteration and experimentation. And so, I mean, I really advise everyone to find a niche that they can own rather than write general blog posts about 10 best things to do in Chicago. No one's going to read that. You better be doing something really flashy or really weird with personality if that's going to stand out to people, because there are millions of those dumb articles on the internet right now. So what corner can you own that delivers meaningful and quality content with the voice of your company, with the voice of your who you are, just your personality? I watch some people that I know have explosive and wonderful and enormous personalities, and I see how they write online or how they run their Instagram. I go, you sound like everything. You sound like a Russian bot could have created this. And it almost feels sometimes that people need authorization to be themselves and to be a little quirky. I run a tour guide training school, but we mention cocktails a lot, and that's part of our brand, is to be real. We love drinking with our friends, with our students at night, and we'll hope, but that's because we've developed that persona, and it's very true to who we are. And it might not appeal to everybody, but you can't be afraid of that. You can't be afraid of not appealing to everyone, because if you are, then you end up appealing to nobody. So just kind of own who you are and work that angle.
And I think people should always have like a 1 or 2 page ready to go. Like I just got an email yesterday from someone from London. They're putting together a pizza map of America, and they want to do 8 or 10 places in Chicago. Well, of course, I've already written up, small capsules and synopsis of half a dozen places. So I always keep that handy just in case, and I can shoot it out the next day.
I think also the cool thing, having interviewed 120 plus tour operators, the trend that I see, the success formula is when you're creating content, when we're creating content about our tours, is not just to be selling our tours, it's to be educating people. So Steve, for instance, is educating people about where to go and get good pizza in Chicago. Our friend Rob Patingolo, Trip Hacks DC, has a fantastic YouTube channel. I recommend you go and check it out. And I asked him, I said, what's the most watched video that you've put out, Rob? And he said, there was a video pre-COVID, how to ride the metro in DC. Because people are searching for that. And if you watch that video, he's not saying, and book my tour. He doesn't actually mention he runs a tour until the very end, but that's really useful information. Shutter Tours in Seattle, they ranked #1 for best way to get to downtown Seattle from the airport. They've written that blog post. People are discovering the tour that way because they're being helpful. I think that's the key thing to remember. It's not just to think about how am I going to sell my tours. It's like, how do I share information that people who are visiting my city or destination are going to find useful? And a question for you, Steve, if I may, and tell me off, Vaughn, if we're into this time.
This is good stuff.
So you mentioned
Vaughn, you can go now. Shane's
I'm really curious about this. So you were talking about the corporate bookings of your virtual experiences. And we heard Avital Ungar at the Arrival conference talking about this last week, that a large part of her bookings are virtual bookings are corporate. Are you looking to use LinkedIn in any way? Because that's something that I've never really seen tour companies use that well. And for that B2B corporate link, I wonder if you had any ideas on that.
Yes, so I put together, again, like a 1-minute video and a 2-page PDF saying, here's my offering. Some pizza experiences, pizza parties, cocktail experiences, and classes. And pushed out on LinkedIn. I pushed out everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, etc. But definitely pushed out on LinkedIn. And yeah, I got immediate response from people.
Yeah.
I mean, I just put it on my normal post, and maybe I posted it twice. But yeah, it's been shared and it's been picked up by colleagues of mine.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, because I think we don't think of LinkedIn. We think, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc. But for that B2B aspect, LinkedIn is pretty powerful if used properly.
Yep. It's got to look professional though. The PDF, the video, it's got to look good.
Don't forget also, this is all reusable in different contexts, that a video that is on your website can also be on a YouTube channel, searchable with the right tags for people to find you through your channel. It can also become part of a LinkedIn post, writing a LinkedIn article. LinkedIn is actually, I mean, great that you bring it up. It's one of the last places that you can actually get organic reach without having to boost a post or sell an ad. You can go viral easier on LinkedIn than other places, but it's also unexplored terrain, and especially in this kind of B2B world that a lot of operators are seeing as a new opportunity. It's great. I get a question a lot, like, I don't know what to write on. And Shane, it was great that you brought up how-to articles, because the #1 webpage by far on the TripSchool website is how to get the New York City tour guide license, because we rank #1 just behind the New York State government and their impenetrable website. We break it down, we make it cute, our font is cuter, and it gets thousands and thousands and thousands of hits every month. Just at the bottom of it, it's like, oh, by the way, we offer a little tour guiding course. Nothing, we're not slapping people over the head with buy this, buy this. It's just, oh, are you curious for a little bit more? Schedule a chat with us. It's very, very soft marketing, but it's very effective. And I will say this also, there are so many tools to help you in understanding and organizing the content that you do create. I love answerthepublic.com. Type in the name of your city and it will create chart after chart, listing after listing, wheel after wheel of what people are Googling about that destination in terms of questions. I worked with an operator just yesterday from Greece, and he was like, Mitch, what are Americans thinking about Greece? I said, I don't know. I don't like walk around America saying, hey, what do you think about Greece? But there are incredible tools out there. So one thing, we went on Rick Steve's European Facebook group, which has 68,000 people there, and we typed in Greece, and it turns out every single day, somebody's saying, what's the situation like in Greece right now? So I said, if I were you, I'd write a blog post saying, what does 2021 in Greece look like? And just give some good information, give some of your hot tips, but it's on your website at that moment. They've walked through the door and now they're yours. What are you going to do with them? Ubersuggest.com, I love. It's free. You type in your location. You're going to get keywords that people are searching for, or you're going to get how-to or questions that people are asking about your destination. And also ask your audience, if you've got an active Facebook page, you don't always have to be this one-way deliverer of information. Reach out, ask a poll, ask them just a simple question. One thing that's effective on Instagram is asking it, and you can make a little question box and they can submit it on stories and then repost their answers. It makes them feel good. Give them a shout out if you get a good answer. I think one of the things that I see the most is people aren't actually interacting with their customers once you've got them commenting. You should be following up and saying, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great destination. It's like you put it out there, you get 84 comments and you haven't responded to a single one of those. Well, you're nurturing leads. And so you do need to nurture it. We're not the type of animal where you have a baby and then the baby goes off and it just does its life. You got to nurture it, hold it, cradle it, and keep it close to you for a while. Most customers need a lot of a lot of moments with you before they decide to be your customer and book you. And that's really what we're doing. We're giving them reasons to keep looking at Shane Whaley's lime green colors. And Von Harden's lime green colors. We're the only
absolutely. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think that's one of the key things, and I've thought about. I don't do this well, which is why I had the experts here to talk about it. So thank you guys. But yeah, I mean, building trust is key. I mean, don't be afraid to be, to have your personality and to be authentic, right? Because that's what it's going to take. Everybody has their own little, their little niche or their little affinity group that they can attract, right? That's the beauty of Facebook and the internet and other things, right? Because it's always a group who's interested in what you have to say, no matter how weird or how unique it may be. They're that group of people you can build trust with. And I think that's what it's all about. Not talking about, because, one thing that I love about Shane and his group is he's really against people who over promote themselves and who just really want to get in front of you and sell their shit, right? And just, give you everything about them, as opposed to giving you what you need exactly, right? So that's something that's really critical, that you get out and you give people what they need. You give them the information. That's how you build trust. When you build trust, you can build your following and build, your customers. So definitely appreciate that. You guys also touched on some different distribution, like Instagram and LinkedIn and some of the other things that the thousands of things that Mitch knows about that I can't remember. I was trying to take notes, but yeah, so many different things that you can use. Shane, of course, has his podcast, and so does Steve. And I don't know, I mean, Shane just mentioned before to me about that not necessarily being something he'd recommend. Can you tell us a little bit more about, why you want to pick and choose what's going to work for you best as an operator?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the podcast, we're very, very lucky in this day and age where we put out some content. And as I said earlier on, we're scientists. We look at the data. So if I put an episode out, let's say I put an interview out with you, Vaughn, and it doesn't do very well, then I'll look at that and I'll say, okay, well, what topics did we cover there? What didn't resonate? And I will go back to the audience and say, well, why didn't you listen to this episode? And then maybe there was a misunderstanding. We thought it was group travel, so it wasn't relevant to me with my walking tours here in NYC. So that's the same thing, going back to customers, going back to your traffic and asking them and engaging. And one of the things I always say, whenever anyone says to me, oh, I really enjoy your show, is I will always say, thank you very much. Do me a favor. When you listen to a future episode, and I'm chatting with a guest and there's a question that I haven't asked that you really want to get an answer to, please email me that question, because I'm not a journalist. I'm not like Steve. I haven't been doing this for 17 years. I'm just a really nosy, curious guy. I'm intrigued by people's story behind how they set up their tour business. So if there is a question I'm missing, I want to know, because I want to get better and I want to provide that information to my listeners, because the chances are one person is like, oh, why didn't he ask such and such? Then I'm sure there is a lot more. And on that subject, I would say as well, we're also lucky just the access we have to all the different brands out there. So I feel that highly effective content creators are consumers. I think it was Stephen King who said, if you don't have time to read, you don't have the time to write. And by that, it's like, look at everybody else's Instagram or TikTok or whatever it may be. What are they doing? I'm never suggesting we should copy, but it's like, okay, what's engaging with that brand? What can I riff off? And don't just look at tours, look at all sorts, look at, chefs or recipes, whatever it may be, what's happening elsewhere. And, learn from those other industries. I was speaking to a very well-known author in the UK recently, and he's a spy author, published, he does it for a living, etc. And I said, when you pick up a book by John le Carre, who is the best spy author who's ever walked the planet, don't you just think, oh, I'm just going to give up and go and do something else because I can't top that? And he said, no, I read it, I appreciate it for what it is. And I think, well, how is this going to influence me to be a better writer? And I think we all do this when we go on tours and activities. We acknowledge that tour and think that was really good. This is what I'm going to take away from that and build into my own business.
That's good stuff, guys. Well, go ahead.
I think what Steve is so naturally good at as well, coming from a journalism background, is storytelling. Remember, I think of this all the time, that there seem to be these boxes that we put ourselves into. Now I'm running a business. I'm a businessman. I send out informational emails. I post informations on our sales. And now I'm a tour guide. And so I'm developing a story. Everything's a narrative. Everything's a sense of journey. Everything should be building anticipation, connecting with emotion. I teach the same things in business classes as I do in tour guiding classes, because it's all about making that connection with your audience, whether it's on Instagram or whether it's in front of them when you see the whites of their eyes. And that also means you need to be connecting on an emotional level. I'll say the most viral post that our public business Facebook page had was when I learned that Broadway was shutting down until the end of May 2021. And I just posted about that, posted a photo of Times Square. And I just asked the audience, our followers, I said, what was the first memory of a show that you ever saw? And oh my gosh, it just kept flooding in. It was Cats, it was Fiddler on the Roof, it was whatever. What are you actually doing? You're tugging at their heartstrings and you're getting them to remember that. And they're doing it on your business page. And so they've got a good, warm, fuzzy related to your brand identity that isn't selling anything, but it's creating that connection. That is good marketing.
Now you bring something up there, Mitch, that I really wanted to cover in this 30 minutes. I can't believe you've only got half an hour to cover content, but when you do post something and you ask for a question, make sure you respond to the messages and the responses. I see so many people online that will ask a question or put a photo up or whatever, and then not respond to the people who are responding. And first of all, I think it's really rude. I know you can't respond to every single one, but respond to a few at least and have that, continue that dialogue. Don't just post stuff as clickbait to get the traffic, engage with your audience. I think it's really important.
Yeah, to your point, I'm responding to people right now. I always respond to any positive TripAdvisor we get. And we've had repeat customers who've taken other tours that they didn't get the last time when they're in Chicago. So like we've had a bus tour, they loved it. I said, come back and take our West Loop walking tour. And I've seen multiple repeats because I do respond to them.
Good stuff, guys. When we unfortunately are running out of time, and you're right, Shane, this is too short to cover the stuff we're covering. So we'll get a little bit more detail, maybe get you guys back for a webinar or something with TourPros before the end of the year. I really appreciate you guys coming on. A couple of just simple takeaways. Be authentic, be interesting, get curious, be responsive, get curious, and get busy, right? Don't just sit there and figure out what, think about what I need to do. Go ahead and get started, and I think those are some very simple takeaways for this. But listen, guys, I appreciate you all coming on. Best of luck to you for the rest of the year. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.